Success. You should have seen us last night. It was a madhouse here. Good to see everybody. Howdy, howdy. Only here. Good to see you. Short Stories by Kate. Hello, hello. Pet Detectives. Rob. Nick Sweeney. Nick, we are not late. We said 9 p.m. EST. So that's 8 p.m. Central Time Zone. So we're right on time. Camera went out last night, though. That was crazy. It took a while to fix, but I did it. I did it. Me, which is a miracle. All right, we'll let everybody kind of roll in here for a second. Good to see y'all. Tonight's topic is a doozy. And some people think like, well, what does this have to do with Old West history? And we'll cover this a little bit more to contextualize it, but this has a lot to do with Old West history. This is, whether you believe it or not, this is the world that a large percentage of a large tribe live in and lived in and live in. They believe this, and I think maybe what I say will surprise you. So it's important to know this stuff, and it still happens today. There's still there's a lot to this story that I think huge parts of it are misunderstood. And we got a fair amount of pushback from doing this episode from people who are a little reticent to talk about this, and I understand why. All right, we got 21 people in here. We can get going. Mike, good to see you. Good to see everybody. All right. So the Doc Will was one of the people who were a little reticent for me to talk about this, and I understand why. I'm almost glad we had the extra day to prep for this a little bit, because in that interim, I've done some more research and I got a better understanding for the ins and outs of this. So we'll jump into it. The actual Old West origins. We're going to talk about how this came to be a part of the American consciousness, and how we took this from, or how we extrapolated this myth from, or this, what do we say here, cryptid, from the basically the Navajo culture, and made it part of our pop culture lexicon today. It's if you say Skinwalker, people generally have some kind of mental idea of what you're talking about, whereas 30, 50 years ago, that certainly wouldn't have been the case. So it's a kind of fascinating evolution from there. And there's a real misunderstanding of what the Skinwalker is and what they do. I say they because it's a matter of who the Skinwalkers are rather than what, in the way that I understand this. Yeah, like the question is, got a notebook this time. I can barely read my own handwriting. But the question is, who are they? Not what are they? Because the question for me isn't whether they're real or not. I think they're real. I think there's historical evidence that says they're real, cultural evidence. It's a matter of, who they are. Is this an actual creature that's turned into a different, is it human that's turned into a different entity entirely? Is it a human that's turned into a wolf? Is it a, human that's turned into, they'll turn into all kinds of stuff in the lore. Or is it a person wearing the skins of those things? And it could be both, right? That's the question that we're kind of answering tonight, or doing our best to answer, and then bridging the gap about what that is and what most people conceptualize a Skinwalker to be. I'm going to poke through the chat real quick, because I know everybody's still popping in here, so I don't want to jump too far ahead before we get going. Paul White says, gonna catch the replay. No problem, man. This will be up anytime you want to watch it. We have a lot of people that listen at work and everything, which is awesome, because that's who we make this for. That's how I got into listening to YouTube and podcasts. Space Cowboy with an Ed Gein reference already kicking us off. And we can touch on that a little bit. This is a very different kind of cultural, psycho-spiritual phenomenon, though. It really exists in the Navajo culture. There are really people who practice this, and really what it boils down to is not so much a cryptid that roams out in the desert as it is they're witches, and it is a unsettling story on many levels. So yeah, that's really what they are. A lot of people think that they're their own animal entities running out there, or they kind of conflate this particular thing, a Skinwalker, with a Wendigo, which is a kind of more an Algonquin-based cryptid or some kind of mishmash of the two. But the Wendigo is kind of the best way to differentiate these is a Wendigo is kind of a permanently afflicted person. The legend was too long didn't read of the legend is that if you were out hunting and you were forced to, I don't know how to say this. And the fun part of this is trying to figure out how to say a lot of this in YouTube terms. If you were forced to eat one of your own, that works, right? If you were forced to eat someone of your species, you would undergo this kind of physical transformation and psychosis, and it would be all you could ever think about again, and you would never get out of it. Um, and it became who you were. Whereas a skinwalker is someone who can slide in between worlds and is using a particular type of magic, kind of with a magic with a K, to reach. They can either hire that out to do hire out deeds, hire out kind of spells and incantations on people, or they can take you out themselves, or they can also be like in a lot of cases a harbinger of like something bad's going to happen to you. Likely you're not going to make it another 2 weeks or whatever, right? There's a lot of uh, differentiation in the personal accounts of the skinwalkers. Like, oh, some people will say a week later the guy was dead or 10 days later, but it all is kind of within the same purview, right? A lot of people also think that they are interchangeable with Apache culture, and they're not really. The Apache have witches, the Apache have medicine men, but the Apache as a whole don't have this separate kind of entity that slips back and forth between dimensions. They, like I said, if you've ever seen, what is it, The Taken with Tommy Lee Jones, they do a really good job of depicting this with the Apache who kidnaps his daughter, where they have a powder and they blow it. He has it in his hand and he blows it in your face and it poisons you, it incapacitates you. That's a real thing. They really had that. They would grind this poison down and put it in there like a little leather thing in their hand and blow it, and it would make you hallucinate or it would poison you. They had different powders for different things, but that's a different thing than actually becoming a creature that's kind of interdimensional, right? That's a different thing. And we might use the word interdimensional a little more than you're comfortable with tonight for it being a history channel, but bear with me. Let's see. So yes, the Skinwalker is not a Wendigo. It is not a cryptid in and of itself. It is a Navajo witch, and there are two different types of them, and there are certainly two different types of Navajo cultural magic, right? It'd be medicine. You could use these terms interchangeably, but there is a white side and a dark side, a light side and a dark side. There's good and there's evil, and one type of medicine can bring on good and healing, and the other type can bring on evil and sickness, right? But the concept of magic itself, whereas in a Western, maybe Christian purview, magic would be pretty much always bad, right? But in this world, it's just viewed as a thing and it can be used for good. There is a light side and a dark side to it. The skinwalkers are those who, I read varying accounts. Maybe there are some good skinwalkers, but the way I understand it, it's good medicine men and then bad skinwalkers. And they can, like I said, hire out for different things or bring on your own doom themselves, but they are a separate cultural entity. And it is way, way crazier than I thought it was. And I get more and more while like Doc Wills in the chat here and several other either native tribe members were warning me in the chat. Fair enough, because this is intense. What happens is, I say happens because I think it's safe to presume that this happens in some iteration today. See, I burned my mouth earlier. Made my own bread, took a big bite, burned my own mouth. Anywho, the skinwalkers have their own rites of initiation, and they kind of exist in a separate entity from the rest of Navajo culture. This is allegedly, right? You can pull this from a bunch of sources, but allegedly to become a skinwalker, it is very similar to Western notions of evil and the demonic, where it has to be invited in. You have to willfully request becoming a skinwalker. You can go that from another skinwalker. You can pray for it. You can do that through a number of things. Usually, you will have to find another skinwalker, request to join, and that means that you are permanently part of that. This is an irreversible decision. Like, you are now separating yourself from your tribe and family as a whole and then becoming a skinwalker. So you're joining this different group, right? Again, you can always find parallels here. Like, you're joining an order of monks or something, right? It's you're becoming part of this separated tradition. In order to get in, though, it's a little hairy. So what you have to do is, I found this similar to like the Spartan Agoge training. To get in, or maybe just a modern day gang initiation, but to get in, you would have to unalive someone. And it couldn't just be any someone. It had to be someone in your direct family. So, like, your second cousin Billy isn't going to cut it, right? It has to be somebody in your direct family. And then, in many cases, they would say that you would have to consume them. I don't know if that's 100% true. Saw that in a couple of accounts. So obviously, a high price of entry, right? But just like other traditions, with that price comes great rewards. There are certainly dark rewards, but they are rewards. Meaning now you can take on the shape of almost any creature you want. I believe you have to have the skin of that creature, so you can go get it and put it on. And different accounts will give you different things. Some say, well, they'll turn into that. If they put on the pelt of a wolf, they'll turn into a wolf. If you put on the skin of a mountain lion, a bear, etc., etc., you will either turn into that or gain the physical qualities of that. So you can slip in and out of a village. You can be around someone and they wouldn't even know it. Like, you can just be another animal out there, but in fact you're, following this person, you're gaining intelligence on this person, you're plotting this person's ultimate demise, right? And there's nothing that this person can do about it. Or you might be doing something horrible in their life. You might be what can it's again the terms of safety thing, terms of service. You might be stealing their food. You might be something as innocuous as stealing their food. You might be making their kids sick. You might be kicking their dog, right? Or it might be something as bad as taking out their whole family and leaving them. All these horrible things could happen to you, and you would have no idea why. And they're being wrought upon you by this entity that can shift in between uh, dimensions, basically. And they can also, a lot of accounts have them gathering together. I don't know if it's just for the initiation, but a lot of them will meet in a cave and they go through a ceremony to purify themselves before doing certain rituals. There's a lot of different accounts on that. All this is all kind of apocryphal stuff, but there's enough seeds of truth where something's happening there. Let's see. So they are witches, black and white. Oh yeah, so the initiation's the bad thing, right? They have to unalive a direct family member, but then you are part of the group. It's like blood in, blood out, right? You're not getting out, and you exist in this kind of dark world, and you hold a power over your fellow tribesmen that they don't have, because they weren't willing to sacrifice what you did. But that becomes they are the terror of that whole area. Like, you cannot say the word. The elders will tell you not to even speak about it. Even going in and getting native members, Navajo tribes people to speak on it in interviews and stuff is pretty dicey. They just don't want to do it. Again, I think finding like a cultural parallel. If you went to devoutly Catholic areas, they don't really want to talk about the demonic so much, right? So stuff like that. Don't you see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil kind of thing. There's a common, at least to contextualize it for you, right? Like, this isn't stuff that's wholly made up in the Navajo culture. There is a common thread of this universal practice of handling the dark elements in the world. Let's see. I'm trying looking at the chat too at the same time. I'm trying to decide when to look at the chat because there's quite a bit of stuff coming in here. Also, if you have something that you really want me to see, you can hit me with a super chat. It's in the little dollar icon at the bottom. I'll for sure see it there. It can be like $1 or something, whatever the lowest thing is. Oh, I don't want to say speak of the devil at this point, but yeah, short stories by Kate with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Okay. See if there's anything else I want to cover before I jump in there. I kind of just wanted to explain in a, you know, in summary what the skinwalkers are, because a lot of people, I think that matters. A lot of people think that uh, I think they think that they're a wendigo, like this creature that just runs around the desert, and they aren't. They're very deliberate. You might see them as this entity with skin hanging off of it, but to me, that is more indicative of like a literal description of someone in history saying, "I saw this person with a wolf skin hanging off of them, and they were doing crazy stuff." So I think that's to me, it's like, well, it's not saying you saw a guy with like a third leg, right? Hold your jokes for that. Uh, it's saying like, no, I saw this guy with the skin on him. It just seems there's a lot more veracity to that, and they are, like I said, universally held by the tribe to be an absolute part of reality. So I think in understanding a culture, and you could apply this to any native tribe, but to understand their culture, to understand the Catholic analogy, to understand Italian culture, you need to understand what they believed or what they believed, because whether it was real to you or not, it was 100% real to them and dictated their behaviors, their cultural norms, their everything, right? Um, let's see. So we said what they can do. They can curse you. They can kill you. They can possess you or different creatures. Usually, I don't think it's they can possess you. They can possess different creatures, and they can often be a harbinger of death. So if you see one, don't plan any vacations. Right? I had to squeeze some humor in here because it was way darker. I thought like, oh, I was under the same umbrella of thought, let's say, as the most of the country. I thought, oh, Wendigo, Skinwalker, kind of interchangeable. And it's like, no, no, no. This is a crazy kind of almost secret society thing, and I'm pretty sure that it happened or still happens. And let's see. And then for all of you, I went through the trouble of watching the what is it, the Ghost Hunters episode with Zach Baggins, and they just like I don't know, they find some random lady, and like no disrespect to her, but I think she's just BSing them because she says like, "Oh yeah, if you go back in this canyon," and it's kind of like just go away. And then I think she gives them some psychedelics of some kind and tells them like, "Don't see the Wendigo, see you later." And then they say, "Oh, we're trapped in the desert, like we're way back in this canyon," and they zoom out and you can see a neighborhood like I don't know a mile away. So suffered through that for y'all, but didn't garner a lot from that. But if you want to learn more on this, the Lore Lodge episode, I'm a big fan of the Lore Lodge anyways, but he did a great job on distinguishing between different cultures' views on their kind of cryptids and their cultural theological practices, right? And specifically between the Skinwalker and the Wendigo. That was a really good one, and how the Skinwalker plays such an integral part in Navajo culture. And if you're Navajo out there, I know it's Dine, but I'm kind of making this digestible for the normal population, so no disrespect. Let's see, anything else that I'm missing out here? All right, we're going to cover the misconceptions that lead to how people view the current Skinwalker Ranch, because that has Old West origins as well. But before we do that, I'm going to jump into the chat real quick. Let's see what you guys are saying. I feel like it's going to be wild. Oh, we got the Ed Gein mention from Space Cowboy. I felt like you were going to mention Ed Gein tonight, Space Cowboy. Call me crazy. And it's good to see you, by the way. Doc Wills says consume. I don't know what you meant by that, Doc, but that's pretty crazy. That's a little creepy tonight. Let's see. Mike Holt says maybe they're a hybrid, like maybe from Bone Tomahawk. Yeah, it seems like they kind of turn into a hybrid. Let's see. Bone Tomahawk was crazy, scary. Were the Skinwalkers part of the Trimble community, or were they too feared? I'm not sure what the Trimble community is. Maybe I need to look that up. Bless up, says Mojo88. Bless ups to you, Mojo. Let's see. Only beer. I'm trying to get to everybody's here, but only beer says, wait, they could hire themselves out as a skinwalker. Yeah, kind of like you would view, pagan witch, right? Like I'm not calling anybody pagans. I'm saying in the European sense, like, or a witch doctor. You could hire them out to put a spell on somebody so like their car tire goes flat, or take them out completely. But you could hire them to say like, hey, I want this done, and they would take it. They would take care of it for you for a price. But it's like anything else. Like the general advice is obviously don't do that, because once you start dabbling in that, it dabbles back. Let's see. Mojo88 says, I believe in all that. Yeah, I mean, like, do I believe in 100% of it? No, but something's going on out there. And it's not so much this like I said, not a creature in particular. It's not a what, it's a who, which is twice as scary. Let's see. Elite Super Grunt says to join you had to sacrifice a loved one. Yep. They're mainly from the Navajo Nation. Correct. Yeah, it seems like an exclusive. This in particular, the Skinwalker is an exclusive DNA trait. Uh, blood sacrifice is a very dangerous thing. Yeah, I think, and you see that. That's why a large part of why the conquistadors were able to topple the Aztecs, because they had this whole economy running on human sacrifice, where they would, can I say that? Whatever. Where they would go to the surrounding tribes and round them up, right? And Cortez's forces were 90% indigenous tribes that had been decimated by the Aztecs for decades. So they were tired of all this sacrifice and stuff. Let's see. Becoming a skinwalker is an automatic expulsion from the tribe. Yeah, it's at least like a separation. They live separately. And it's kind of like anything else. It's like joining the mob, where it's like, okay, you have this power. You'll be able to do these things now, but there's no getting out. We sparked a bit of a Catholic debate. That's always fun. Let's see. I would imagine Alex Jones has covered the topic of skinwalkers. I would imagine so. I haven't seen something where he has, but if he hasn't, he's missing out. Let's see. Short stories by Kate. A dumb quote. Okay, this isn't Skinwalkers, but do you write short stories? She does. They do. Yes, it's a 2-person operation, but it's great channel, great kids channel. Go check out Short Stories by Kate. Let's see. Sacrifice, as in sacrifice their life. The Skinwalkers wouldn't sacrifice their life, but it was a sacrifice of a life to gain some kind of, and to join. Yes, they would have to sacrifice someone in their immediate family. Which I don't know if my dad's watching, but don't worry, I wouldn't do that. Let's see. Magic Keycast says, I don't know about Alex Jones, but I recall hearing it on Coast to Coast. Yeah, that's I've heard a bunch of Art Bell talking about it. There's got to be 12 solid hours at least of people calling in or Art Bell talking about it. And good to see you, Magic Keycast. I'm going on the Magic Keycast. I believe this was sometime this weekend. We were supposed to tonight, and a storm took us out. Lots of tech problems this week. But go check out Magic Keycast on YouTube. Good friend of mine, and a super entertaining Disney channel. Really kind of sparked my idea for the Davy Crockett episode on his how Disney turned Davy Crockett into a national icon. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So go check it out. I know you guys will like it. All right. Scan in the chat. See if I missed anything else. All right. I think I got everybody I can see. We're going to move on to how this impacted the famed Skinwalker Ranch, because there is a big misunderstanding of calling it. Creates a huge misunderstanding calling it Skinwalker Ranch, because what it does is create that notion of a bunch of entities out there or a werewolf kind of thing out there, whatever, right? Like it's a creature. And that's not a skinwalker. And that's not in skinwalker territory. That's in Ute territory in Utah. And the Ute have, creatures that are evil creatures, let's say to them, right? But they don't have a skinwalker. So that's kind of a misnomer. But on the other side of that, for a long time, crazy stuff has been happening in that area. And I think northern Utah. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. One thing I didn't think of was to get the exact location, but it's in Utah. All right. It's in Utah. It's been untouched for a while. Not a lot of people stayed there. People passed through there, right? But crazy stuff happens there all the time. But none of it would be real. If you understand what a skinwalker is, none of it is stuff that a skinwalker would really do. It's not any of the things we listed. It's not killing. It's not like necessarily cursing. It's just creepy stuff that keeps happening, inexplicable stuff. And it wasn't opened as a ranch. It wasn't owned by American citizens as a ranch until 1905. But I think that really hammers in my continual point of the Old West didn't stop at 1900. It went till, I don't know, I think World War One. Like when guys got back from World War One, they had seen the world. At least they'd seen a lot, but they'd certainly seen the world. And I think that started shifting American culture and the automobile and electricity and everything. But lots of places didn't have that. It was still the Wild West for all intents and purposes in many, many ways. But so that the ranch doesn't start till 1905, but hardly anybody's out there. Then all this crazy stuff starts happening. If you want a real deep dive on this, like Magic Keycast said, absolutely go check out the Art Bell episodes. All you got to do is YouTube Coast to Coast Skinwalker, and it's going to give you a whole weekend's worth of entertainment, which, pace yourself because we have a couple episodes coming out this weekend, but it'll give you lots of entertainment. But the things that happened at Skinwalker Ranch have happened for over 100 years now. And several of them are just kind of innocuous, kind of banal things, like things will get moved or doors will close or doors will open. But some of the things are just creepy and inexplicable. There's been a wolf that was out there that was like prowling around the property. And I think this was in the 80s. It was relatively recently. So the guy's like, all right, I'm tired of this wolf. He shoots it, and it's like an invincible wolf. Like it doesn't really care. It doesn't charge him, but he's just like, I don't really care. He shoots it again and again and again. And the wolf is just like a bionic wolf. Doesn't care. I think it comes a little bit closer and then it just kind of walks off. Like it's which is the craziest, creepiest result of of you doing that, right? And then another one, if you've ever been around cattle, this one really is, I think, a freaky one. These people that owned it, I think it's the Myers, had a little small trailer, like a 3-horse trailer. And I mean, not very big, very small. I guess 3-horse trailer, let's say. And they had a couple bulls, right, in this pen. And the trailer is up against the pen, but the gate's not opened or anything. So they go to bed. The bulls are in the pen, and they wake up and they hear like a rumbling. I don't know what it is out by the pen. And they go out and check it, and the bulls aren't in the pen. They just look around. Well, where are the bulls? Where are the bulls? And then they hear rumbling from the trailer, and they open the gate, and inside the trailer, there's 3 bulls. You'd have to put them like there's one with his head facing forward, and then another is backed in with his head facing towards the back, and then the third one is backed in or led in with his head facing forward. So if you've ever worked with cattle, like it's basically impossible. It's not going to happen. And they're all very docile, which is like bulls can be docile, but they're kind of like tranked out. So they open the gate, they put them back in the pen, and there's no explanation for it ever. But I think, even a century's worth of that isn't skinwalker activity. Like it's not, you're not actually seeing any skinwalker ever. You're just in a creepy, eerie place. So I just thought once I learned what a skinwalker was, it changed my view of that entirely. Like, well, it's almost worse because it's like, no, it's not just the one thing. We got 2 to worry about. So if you go down to Arizona way, you got to watch out for the skinwalkers. And if you go up to Utah, you got to watch out for whatever's going on at that ranch. But yeah, it's almost a worse deal, right? So I'm trying to think if I'm leaving anything else out. We want to just kind of give you a summary of that, right? We don't have to. It's hard to dive super into something that's so amorphous, but I came away from this thinking that something is going on. This is not something that you should dismiss wholesale. If you're ever out in that area, just mind your P's and Q's, you know? Okay, so let me know in the chat if you've ever seen a skinwalker, and are you afraid of them? Or and also if you've heard any crazy skinwalker ranch stories. Magic Keycast always has my back. He says it is northeastern Utah in the Uinta Basin near Fort Duquesne. Is that right? And bordering the Utah and Ouray Indian Reservation. I feel like I've heard Art Bell say that verbatim many times. And yet it didn't stick in my brain, but I got it now. It hasn't been a ranch since Robert Bigelow bought it. True. Yes. So it was bought. I'm not super well versed on it. I spent most of my time on learning what the Skinwalker was. And I've listened to hours of Skinwalker Ranch stuff, but really we should do our own stream on that, because this was just a kind of, let's figure out what a Skinwalker is. And does that relate to Skinwalker Ranch? And in my view, it doesn't. So it's almost worse. We got two things to worry about. And do you think, in the chat, let me know, do you think that's what we're worried about? Do you think skinwalkers are on Skinwalker Ranch, or is it something else? Let's see. Well, there's a lot of stuff. We got you guys going. I don't know about, okay, we got that. Yeah, it's not a ranch anymore, right? It's more like a tourist attraction now, right? A wolf that was seemingly impervious to gunfire. Yeah. And those are the two that most stand out in my mind, but there's a bunch of other stuff. People have seen lights out there. I know I'm missing several things. That's why it needs its own stream. And I only had like 2 days to prep for it. So I was like, well, let's figure out what the Skinwalker is first. One step at a time. One step at a time. Was there a particular animal the Skinwalkers favor? Not one in particular, but it seemed like the wolf. There's also, like, you kind of got to take into account there's a lot more animals around than you think, especially at that time. So there's bear, wolf, mountain lion. In some cases, I think jaguar, which is, you wouldn't really think, but yeah, there's jaguar up that way. There's jaguars in Texas. Jaguar. Let's see. Pennsylvania Plowboy, are you saying you don't believe in the Skinwalker? I tend to think wolf or coyote. Yeah, very popular. And you also were kind of picking something that you wanted to take on the powers of. So if you wanted to be fast, you take on a coyote. If you want to be strong, a bear. Let's see. Go backpacking solo in the desert Southwest, camp in some of the old areas and see what you feel. Man, I don't want to do that. That's a beautiful area, but I think, well, you could treat it with reverence, right? Like, I'm not particularly scared of anything happening, but don't kick a hornet's nest if you don't have to. Magic Keycast says, I think it's something else, not sure what. I hadn't heard about the wolf that couldn't be shot. Yeah, I heard that from Art Bell, a caller, the guy that lived on Skin Ranch prior to it being prior to it being sold. It was just him and his wife, I think. For after, I think they had kids and the kids moved out, and then it was just a guy and his wife, and then it was sold. Skinwalkers can also sound human. Oh, I forgot. The Skinwalkers also have this. I think the Wendigo has something similar too. So it's easy to get these mixed up, but they can throw their voice. So they can be way far away from you and sound right next to you, or they can be right next to you and sound way far away from you. And the saying is, if they sound close, they're far. And if they sound far, it's too late, which is like, whoa. Never seen one and don't want to see one, says Pennsylvania Plowboy. I'm in the same camp. Space Cowboy says, did a quick search for movies about skinwalkers, and not to my surprise, there are there are a few movies about skinwalkers. Yeah, it's a great topic and it's like cinematically perfect, right? And it lends itself to a bunch of different interpretations, but it's something that the DNA, the Navajo take super seriously, and I think for good reason. And it's like I said, it's I think it's not like a what, it's a who, and that's always a way scarier question. And there's something like that is still going on out there in my from what I'm able to garner. Because people are always going to want to exert as much control as they can, and this is a way they believe they can do it. So I think it's still happening, and I think it's something to at least be cautious of. Deep in the redwoods is scary enough for me. Yeah, that's me personally. That's the last place I'm going camping because I don't know what's out there, but it's beautiful. But there's not a lot out there that's not creepy-ish. Let's see. I'm scrolling through here. Trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Any Skinwalker Ranch stories? And a lot of these are they're easy to mix up because they're very common throughout native lore. There's a lot of Sasquatch stories from Canada on down through California on through I think there's some in Arizona, um, through Texas, a lot of them in Texas, and then obviously all throughout the Southeast. Florida has there's a skunk ape, there's a swamp man, it's obviously a Sasquatch. Everybody has their own regional name for it, and there's lots of kind of iterations of a Wendigo where it's like this human transformed into a walking dead creature kind of. And a lot of times it was for some kind of societal stigma. Most tribes were ardent anti-cannibalists. Let's say that. So they wanted to stigmatize that. So it's like, well, if you do that, because you could get in dire straits. I think people underestimate where it's like, no, no, no. There was times when there was no food, and people were like, "What are we gonna do?" Or they were out on a hunting party, and there's nothing, and it's just you and this other guy, and maybe he doesn't make it. So they don't want you doing anything weird out there. We got to stigmatize it somehow. So it's certainly more than continent wide. It's North and South America. A lot of tribes have some iteration of uh, hybrid creature and a Sasquatch creature. Let's see. Quick search for movies. Oh wow, Nick Sweeney with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much, man. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. You're a real one, dude. Thank you very much. If you have anything you want to chip in, let me know. I'll put that to the top of the list. We'll make sure we get to it. Even if you just make up a Skinwalker story, we'll do it. No, I'm kidding. Man, thank you so much, though. That's awesome. You guys are just a blast to hang out with, too. So thank you to everybody for being here. This gives us kind of a different venue to explore these topics. And I think it is worthwhile in a legitimate study of history to fully contextualize all this. All right. So I think we're all right. Yeah, we're kind of hitting. I'm trying to think if I left anything out of the notes. I think we're good for now. So yeah, we'll talk about some more stuff. What's up, Texan? Texan born? Good to see you. If you're just getting here, let us know if you have any crazy Skinwalker stories. Oh yeah, and I was talking about the continent-wide cryptids that are from different tribe to tribe. I think it's worth kind of going maybe a little bit more into the Wendigo as well, because we'll be covering Northeast tribe in our next episode. So you just have an idea. Like, listen, think about how crazy this world is. Like you're living deep in the forest. Let's say with the Wendigo, you live in the forest. This is largely before firearms, before contact with Europeans or anything. So you're out in the forest and you're basically worried in the back of your mind a little bit all the time that somebody out there who maybe you used to know has eaten somebody and is now a half animal, half human, uh, evil possessed entity with like horns on its head and skin dripping off its bare skeleton. and you just got to go about your business. And that's every day. And that's generation after generation. And I think it's good to understand, just like you would with the Aztecs, like, well, why are they sacrificing all these people? It's like, well, you need to know why and how that shapes their day-to-day outlook and how that shapes their entire culture, because it's a real thing. It's not all just um, why it's all harvest seasons and hunting parties. It's like there was a worldview that shaped all of this as well, and it was absolutely real, whether it's real to you or not, absolutely real to, say, the people in the Northeast, and they're wondering about the Wendigo all the time. And they were wondering and worrying about the Wendigo when they're fighting with George Washington. So it's, this directly affects the people who directly affected the shaping of our country. It's a link in the chain. It's an important link in the chain to know. So yeah, there's the Wendigo. Oh, I'm trying to think of some other ones. Sasquatch. And a lot of them are just Wendigo-esque. Like it's just this skeletal creature who used to be a human that has some kind of horns, and there's always skin dripping off of it. And it's just makes a great graphic drawing, but it's unpleasant to think about. Is this taboo to talk about in the Navajo Nation? Absolutely. You're really not supposed to at all. And like I said, I don't think that's totally culturally unique, because even in Christian cultures, you're not supposed to talk about the demonic. In Islamic culture, you're not supposed to talk about jinns, like a genie. We think of it like the Robin Williams genie from Aladdin, which I would prefer. But a jinn is an evil spirit who can grant you wishes, but can really do some bad stuff to you too. And you don't go to the coffee shop and just rap with your buddies about jinns, right? No more than you would rap with your buddies at church or McDonald's or whatever about demons, right? It's all something that's like, hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. So that makes it difficult to ascertain firsthand knowledge of it, right? Some of this stuff is clipped from newspapers from the late 1800s and mid 1900s. And a lot of it is akin to that like 90s supermarket newspaper. What was it called? But it was always talking about Bat Boy was born in Cuba, or flying saucers seen in Nova Scotia or something. Anybody remember that was called? The Daily News or something? I used to see it in Walmart all the time. But yeah, it's kind of a cultural wide phenomenon, but I really thought I haven't done enough research to see if it's just the Navajo. I'm wondering if there's something in some tribes in the Pacific Northwest that have something similar, because the Navajo kind of came down from the Pacific Northwest. So I'm wondering, and we're going to look into that more. We'll talk about that more when we do the Skinwalker Ranch episode. Yeah, not the National Enquirer. Even that made this one look like a reputable publication. Or even, yeah, that looked like a reputable publication in comparison to this one. It was always talking about Bat Boy. You're like little Bat Boy on the front cover with like blacked out eyes. But it's probably as reputable as any publication. Yeah, it's a I don't know. Does it speak to, what do you guys think? Is that like the fallacy of what's it called? Where like everyone says it, so it must be true? Or is there something to this? Do you think there are cryptids running around out there? Magic Keycast says, is it called the mirror or the sun? I'll have to go look it up. I spent a lot of time in Walmart as a kid, and I know I saw it quite a bit. The moral of the Wendigo legend, Grizzly says, the moral of the Wendigo legend is more or less to warn folks away. Yeah, that's what we just said. Yeah, absolutely. Warn folks away from cannibalism in a harsh winter. Skinwalker is a dark shaman of sorts. Man, if you just got here, I wish you'd been here at the beginning, because I'm glad you weren't here at the beginning, because that pretty much just summed up my whole episode in a paragraph there. But yeah, the Wendigo are basically to warn people away from cannibalism, and he has a great point there talking about long, harsh winters. That's another thing that these Northeast tribes especially encountered, because they couldn't really, you're really relegated to what you could gather in the fall. So if things went south, you wanted to warn people away from eating each other. What about aliens? What did natives say about them? Doesn't seem to be as much as I would have thought. I did some diving into that for this, but I didn't see a ton of it. And like, if I'm missing something, let me know in the chat. And I wonder if that's just because they describe it differently than we would have. There's lights in the sky. There's, you know, accounts of interdimension, like we were saying about the skinwalkers, interdimensional beings. But I didn't see a ton of like what you would classify as UFO stuff. Which is that because of Project Blue Beam? Blue Beam? I don't know. Is that because of Project Blue Beam? Let me know in the chat. What about aliens? Yeah. Weekly World News. Yeah, that's right. Weekly World News. A reputable publication if there ever was one. Jeff Friedman says Road Warriors versus Skinwalkers would have been a heck of a match. I'd tune in for that. Doc Will says read Dr. Michael Harner, The Way of the Shaman. Dr. Michael Harner, The Way of the Shaman. All right, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to really creep out guests in my house when they see that. Way of the Shaman. Have you guys seen the photo of Chaco Canyon, of the drawing from a supernova explosion? I have not. Chaco Canyon. I know I've heard that name, but I have not seen the supernova explosion. Buckaroo Banzai is about interdimensional beings, says Space Cowboy. Seems like a lot of people believe in interdimensional beings. I'm not surprised. I kind of thought a lot of you guys, I mean this well, but I mean I thought a lot of you guys might believe in interdimensional beings. There were a lot of cryptid stories from all over the planet, but the Skinwalker is a specific being from Utah. Okay, and that's kind of what we were talking about is it's not so much Utah, it's more the Navajo territories. And yes, the Navajo do go into Utah. And I think that's why the term Skinwalker gets used for the ranch, because it's at this kind of rough overlap point. There aren't exact borders between territories of tribes. So it's at this kind of overlap point with the Ute and the Navajo. But the Ute and the Navajo were avowed enemies. So they didn't spend a lot of time in each other's territory. So the Skinwalker is more a little bit farther south, where the Utes had more kind of evil spirits you had to watch out for, but not the specific shaman society that is the Skinwalkers and the Navajo. How about shapeshifters? I mean, as far as intentional shapeshifting, the closest you can get is the Navajo Skinwalkers. I mean, it's something that you can see it today. It shapes people's lives. They won't do certain things because you don't want any interaction with a Skinwalker. And like, can you blame them? Like, it's no, especially if you're a believer, man, of course you'd be crazy for it not to shape your life. Armenian Bishop, good to see you. Didn't know much about Skinwalkers, but heard about them from Art Bell. Art Bell has done so much to spread the word. I really like that's why we're doing this live stream right now, because I've listened to so much Art Bell. Oh, one thing I did want to share. I was listening to Coast, a George Norrie episode. Listen, I got nothing against George Norrie, okay? But it doesn't have the same spice as when Art Bell interviews somebody. But either way, George Norrie is interviewing this guy who calls in. He has written a book on the Skinwalkers. His wife is a Dine, is a Navajo, and he's lived on the Navajo reservation for 20 years. And he starts his call talking about the first day that he saw a Skinwalker, was involved with this dark energy in some way. He says he's outside in his garage on the reservation, and a dog walks up while he's working on his car, and the dog is acting weird and foaming at the mouth and clearly just out of his mind, right? Going nuts, like just almost rabid, but something he'd never seen before. So he says, so I had this 2x4 and I grabbed the 2x4 and then I took the dog out, like, and that took the dog out immediately. So then I told my wife, I got to go to the dump and get rid of this dog. And then there I saw a Skinwalker, and like, I was like, listen, bro, like, I'm sure you did see a Skinwalker, but that doesn't sound as crazy as the first part of your story, like to just cold open with that. He was just like, well, you know how it goes. Like sometimes you see a dog, you got a 2x4, 2 and 2 plus makes 4, So he's like kind of saying like it was a boring story. Like, sorry, I have to bore you with this. But of course, the typical Saturday of taking out a dog with a 2x4. Let's see. All right. Just wanted to share that with y'all because I thought that was a hell of a little caveat there. All right. Buckaroo Banzai is about interdimensional beings. Is that like a book or a movie? I'm pretty, what would you say, like myopic with my media. It's pretty much like podcasts and books. I haven't seen as many movies as I should. There are a lot of cryptid stories from all over the podcast. We got that one. Science isn't enough for me to be told not to believe in something, since a lot of science is just there to be proven wrong most of the time. Yeah, and I think it's a good point. Science is an interpretive tool, right? It doesn't necessarily tell us anything, and it doesn't know what it doesn't know. And it is limited to the scope that it's working in. You know, it's limited to the three-dimensional scope. So it is not the infallible arbiter of truth. It is just a valuable tool. Let's see. Comic Dog says, starting from the beginning. Yeah, scroll on back, man. We covered a good little bit of just the basics of the Skinwalker, enough to keep you out of trouble, or maybe enough to get us in trouble. I don't know. Let's see. Grizzly says, "What's the deal with the Skinwalker Ranch?" Oh, we were talking about that a little bit, where it's kind of a misnomer, or it is. I think it's an outright misnomer, intentional or not. There's just tons of creepy stuff that's been happening out there, documented for 120 years, and beyond that, the tribes, the Ute specifically, did not want to settle there. It was always kind of a spooky spot. But calling it Skinwalker Ranch kind of implies, it's implicit in that there are skinwalkers there, and skinwalkers are an entirely separate shamanic society within the Navajo specifically. So it's not skinwalkers out there doing that. It's something. And it could be our it could be our good friends at the Uncle Sam department. Never know. You've never, oh, I knew you were going to yell at me for this, Space Cowboy. You've never seen the movie Buckaroo Banzai. Oh man, it's from 1984. You're in for a treat. It's a little before I was born. So, all right, I will watch it. See, just a little before my time, literally. What is a djinn? A djinn it's a genie. That's where it's the etymology for the word genie. It's anglicized. It was Gin, I think, where it's a evil spirit in the Islamic Arabic world. Pet Detective says, I've seen Buckaroo Banzai. Rub it in my face. The cool kids club, making sure I don't sit with them. Let's see. Do you believe the testimonials about the Skinwalker Ranch? I mean, I do believe those people saw and experienced something. I don't know how those bulls got. That was really creepy to me, and it's not entirely impossible, but that is as close to impossible as it gets. The wolf story as well, not entirely impossible, but as close to impossible as it gets. And that's just a few of the stories. So whether I believe them individually, I think the collective, the aggregate of that story, yeah, there's something going on. I just don't know what. But I'm not visiting. Watch the trailer for Buckaroo Banzai tonight. Okay, I will. Maybe we can watch it as a movie watch night. Incredible cast from before they were started. Oh, really? Okay. The name rings a bell. I just haven't seen it. Who else was in it, Space Cowboy? Let me know. Everybody else, let me know if you have any Skinwalker experiences, and also, would you visit Skinwalker Ranch? And do you believe this? Because I didn't go into it not a believer, and I don't think it's something that I need to worry about. But I think it's something that it's a real shamanic society. It's not like a metaphor. Checking the chat. And yeah, I kind of alluded to it a second ago, but we've got Young Washington coming up, the Battle of Jumonville, which is really where he made his bones. An intense survival story, an intense battle. It's super intense aftermath that I think rattled him pretty good. Terry says, sorry, but I'm not visiting Skinwalker Ranch. Nope, I'm not going. I got enough problems. Only Beer says, I believe it. I've seen things here in the Arizona desert I can't explain. Yeah, I've spent a little time in the Arizona desert, and it's certainly a place where it's like, if there is something going on, it's happening here. I feel that way about the Mojave as well. And listen, if you live out there and you're watching right now, I love you. But everybody else that I've met out there, it's like the hills have eyes. It's wild out there. Magic Keycast says, I've never been, but I would visit. However, I'm probably not hanging around outside at night. But you just love adventure, Magic Keycast. That's why you love Disneyland. You'll go for a ride. It's implicit within that. I'm not taking that ride. All right, fellas, grab your pack, flashlights, cameras. We're all going to the Skinwalker Ranch. I will endorse and I will supervise a Skinwalker Ranch trip, but I'm gonna have to pass. I'm really busy this weekend, you know. Let's see. I'd love to party with Travis and Dragon from at the ranch for a weekend. I guess I'd go party there. Mm, yeah, I'd party there, I guess. That's a good point. I wouldn't stay, but I'd party. Buckaroo Banzai, Peter Weller, John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd, Jeff Goldblum. Wow. Well, Christopher Lloyd was big then, right? Taxi, Back to the Future, I guess, wasn't quite out yet. Arizona is still definitely the Wild West. Yeah, I think large portions of this country. I think if you like made a map of it and we're mapping out like what is and what is not still the Wild West, the majority of this country would still be the Wild West. Class trip. Class trip to Skinwalker Ranch. Yes, but I'm the principal, right? So the principal can't go on the field trip. You got to stay in the office. I got paperwork to do, you know? Mercenary BDU says skinwalkers must be something I would rather not want to deal with. Yeah, exactly. I got taxes to pay. I gotta wash the truck. A lot of stuff needs doing before I take on the skinwalkers. Terry says Barstow is a harsh environment. Yeah, it's rough out there. I met some good people from Barstow, but the outskirts of Barstow and out in the desert, boy, it gets crazy. That's why Never Been to Spain is a great song because I was headed for Las Vegas. I only made it out to Needles. And if you've ever been out there, you think like, damn, that sucks. Did someone ever make a movie about the Skinwalker Ranch? They made a documentary, not like not to my knowledge, they haven't made like a fictionalized movie. Probably 10 years ago, I think there was a pretty in-depth documentary on it. Where is Skinwalker Ranch located? Northeastern Utah. Way out in I guess, I don't know if that's high desert, but it's that not just like sand, like rocky desert. I stand corrected, says Douglas Jones. The Utes sold the Navajo as slaves to the Spanish, right? The Navajo cursed the land they were forced to live on. The Navajo territory is massive and included several states, not just Utah. Yes, it's got be like the southwestern portion of Utah. There's just it depends who you ask, right? Like the Ute will tell you it's the Navajo's fault. The Navajo will tell you it's the Utes' fault, or one was culpable for more atrocities than the other. I'm not in a position to make that call, but you will see that. But there is a long-standing enmity there. They do not like each other, or have not in the past. Let's see. I think it would be cool if we could find a way to fund a trip to some historical sites as an HOKC group. Yeah, it depends on where everybody is, but that would be cool. I think we can maybe start some kind of GoFundMe or something. I'd have to think about that. But I've thought about places like the Alamo and Parker's Fort, and there's a lot of places to go. We're doing one on Fort Necessity, which Fort Necessity, they weren't kidding. Like that's just like it's like somebody took a bunch of planks from their backyard fence and just like made a circle of it and was like, all right, we'll fight from here. And it's like, you sure? Let's see. I like Billy Bob's. That's Billy Bob's is a Texas institution. think my dad rode bulls there. They'll let anybody in that joint, you know? Is Barstow in California? It is. It's way out in the desert. Like, I don't know if it's very, I believe, very close to the Nevada line. And it seems like you're in a big town when you're there because there's just nothing else there. Doc Will says, love the Alamo. Yeah, if you haven't, go check out our Davy Crockett episode on the Alamo. I I think that was, I think his angle to me is the most interesting in the Alamo because Travis was running from a lot, and I think Travis expected not to make it. Bowie was sicker than I even realized. Like he just wasn't even able to get out of bed, and he wasn't very old. I thought he was. The movies make him look like he's in his 60s, and really he's like in his 40s. So I thought Crockett's was the most intriguing. Let's see. I'm an hour away from the Alamo. Me too. Adobe Walls. Oh, yeah, Adobe Walls would be cool. The actual spot, I think, is on private land. My uncle's a working cowboy, and he said he worked on the actual land, the guy that owns it. I live by Woman Hollering Creek. Oh, where is that? Oh, I know. That's San Antonio? Is that San Antonio? Man, I know I've heard of it. That'd be a great live stream topic. That's creepy. Or maybe, man, Woman Hollering Creek. Yeah. Is that like Seguin? Like more of the Seguin area? Yeah, it's southeast San Antonio. Okay. Walmart up. Oh, I was just, man, Doc Will. Walmart at Barstow is entertainment. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you said Barstows. That's where I go when I'm in Barstow. You got to towards Seguin. Okay, yeah. Our headquarters are in Seguin, so I knew I'd heard of it. I knew it was relatively close. Everything in Seguin is haunted, man. There's supposedly a headless general that walks up and down the street. There's the Magnolia Hotel. There's the Main Street Square. Uh, Even where our office is, there's a supposedly a tunnel underneath that, and the tunnel's haunted. It's like, take a break. Texan Born says, I'm in Fredericksburg. Ooh, man, primo area. Love it out there. Texas Vintage says, no doubt Seguin and New Braunfels are haunted. Yep, big time. And they're some of the oldest cities, especially in Central Texas. San Antonio is the oldest, really. But they were founded in the 1830s, which is nuts. Let's see. There's a Skinwalker movie on IMDb. Looks like a low-budget horror movie. That's more fitting, right? That's kind of what I would want. Only Beer says, got to make it to Texas someday. So much stuff I'd like to see. It's beautiful out here, and it's such a big state that, El Paso is an entirely different entity than Lampasas or than San Antonio or Houston, and Austin is a completely different entity than all of them. Let's see, what are we at? We are an hour in. Yeah, you know what? So also I've been looking at a bunch of topics, right? And sometimes I have trouble squeezing them into the Old West lens, right? A lot of stuff we were talking about, the JFK assassination, just a lot of the more supernatural and controversial, more modern day stuff that we talk about, even stuff that's like conspiracies from the medieval and Roman times. Like I would like to cover it, but it's kind of hard to fit it under the umbrella of an Old West channel. So I was thinking about starting a separate channel. It'll be a little while, like probably January before I'm able to do this, but something like hidden history or something in that vein, right? Where we can talk about anything, and I can do one of these several times a week, once a day or something like that. A lot. Like I'll be able to hop on and do a bunch of them. Is that something that you guys would be interested in? Because all you gotta do is like click subscribe, and then we could, you know, start it up. Like I said, it'll probably be January, but let me post a poll here. Let me know what you guys, the hardcore fans, say. Would you be interested in a conspiracy channel? It could be conspiracies, mysteries, all that stuff, but let me know. It's just something I've been kicking around because I got a bunch of good ideas, but then it's like, well, how do I squeeze that in, especially like JFK, kind of tough. Patton, Patton's a little. What happened to Patton? What happened to Patton? Hidden history in your format. That sounds good. Cool, man. Yeah, let me vote in the poll and let me know, and we'll tally things up. I know everybody here is kind of like into that, so it's something I would really like to do. And we'd keep the same release schedule. Like nothing's going to change on History at the OK Corral, but sometimes the audience gets confused here too. They're like, "Why are you talking about even skinwalkers?" And it's like, well, I get it, but it's relevant to this channel. But I think it'd be fun to have another venue where we can talk about anything within reason, guys, within reason. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. People are down for it. Did you ever look into the Apache Leap? Oh, that's another one that jogs my memory a little bit. Let's shut it down. Yeah, dude, the patent thing, super weird. Super weird. And a bunch of other things like, and obviously I think the Lincoln thing we could squeeze in here, but we can do it. We can do it. John Lennon, anybody whose name ends in FK, the R or the J, even what happened to their oldest brother, that was weird too. And we were talking about the USS Indianapolis, super weird. The atom bomb project as a whole, as a whole thing, guys, the whole thing. Operation Paperclip, and Stanley Kubrick. You telling me it was impossible? It was impossible that it happened on a soundstage when we had Space 2001 and Odyssey released the year prior? And how do you get through the Van Allen radiation belt? Just throwing these things out here. But it's hard to talk too much about that on an Old West channel. So vote if you haven't got your vote in yet. Do you want me to have a separate, hidden history channel? Dorothy Kilgallen was a game show player. Who's Dorothy Kilgallen? That's a rough last name. Plowboy says they got him out of the way. He's talking about Patton. They got him out of the way to shut him up. I'm not agreeing with you, but let's see. I just got home from work. Stephen Miller, what's up, man? Well, no problem. This will be up. Come on back. Start it over or hang with us now, and you can watch the rest later. This is a podcast for the working man, so it's for you. We're happy to have you here. Let's see. Robert Kennedy. Well, what's their oldest brother's name, though? The first brother. That's Robert Kennedy was the B-24 pilot. The whole Kennedy thing, very strange. Even how they got their start. It was bootlegging, but there was other stuff going on. The Bushes. Everybody thinks, oh, they're a Texas family. No. Prescott Bush, founder of the CIA. HW, head of the CIA at the time that were right before the JFK assassination. Just a lot of stuff to talk about, But none of that would change the release schedule here because this is the one I had the most fun doing. So I'm always kind of Old West first. But there's so much, and you guys are so knowledgeable about all this other stuff. I thought it'd be fun. So we'll look at it in a second here. Let's see if there's anybody else talking about skinwalkers. I live in the Wasatch Mountains, just north of it's Uinta Mountains, right? The Uintas have skinwalker traditions. I've never heard of any Wasatch skinwalker tales. We have Bigfoot. That's enough for me. Yeah, just don't go out at night. You remember those Jack Link's Bigfoot commercials? Those were good, right? I was going to say, take some beef jerky with you. Should be good. Did you ever look into Apache Leap? Like I said, jog my memory on that. I have heard of Apache Leap. Let's see. Hidden history in your format. Sounds good. Cool. Thanks, Doc. Supernatural American folklore. Yeah, that's what I mean. Anything supernatural to conspiracy oriented. That's, I think, stuff that's harder to prove because this is we want to make this as reputable and as rock solid of an as academically rock solid of a channel as is possible. These are important stories. I think they are representations of people's lives that actually happen. So it's important to stay within certain lefts and rights on that, right? But when it's things that are awash in the gray, I think it's just as important to cover, but it just might take a separate venue to free us up a little bit. Let's see. And you guys always hit me like I'll start talking about something, and you guys hit me with even wilder takes in the chat, stuff I didn't even know about. Okay. Dorothy Kilgallen. Yeah, so who is that Armenian bishop? Patton would be a great subject. Oh yeah. Patton's that's a curious ending there. Doesn't sit well with me. Though if there's anybody, if I'm on any kind of watch list, don't worry about it. Like it doesn't, I'm not that interested, okay? Rain Travel says, I'm very drunk right now. Rock on, man. All right. Wait, well, yeah, we're not encouraging that kind of behavior, but have a good time. The Wasatch Mountains in Utah have a very rich history. They sure do, yeah. Anywhere there's mountains, there's a lot of folklore. I'd like to go see those though. Beautiful, beautiful place. Oh, the Winchester Mansion, Texan Born says, yeah, that's I don't know, an hour and a half away from where I grew up. You'd see billboards for it all the time. That's a really good one. Really good one. We might be able to sneak that in under Old West history, because the Winchester really did shape the frontier in a lot of ways. That in conjunction with the Walker Colt revolver, man, kind of ultimately that plus smallpox plagues ultimately won the war for the United States. And then it ended up with that lady, God bless her, but she went nuts. That place is crazy. Like you just haven't, it's like, lady, listen, you didn't build and sell the gun. Okay. Take 5 minutes and chill out. But she's like, no, build another door that goes nowhere. And you're like, okay, what are you going to do if you're the contractor? Like she's paying you. So it's like, whatever you say. What happened to the one person? Oh, the one person that unsubbed earlier. I don't know, man. It's you gotta stir things up a little bit. You know what I mean? You gotta make a little noise. People walked out of Rolling Stones concerts, but the show goes on. They see Winchester Mansion. That's a remodel project that never ends. Like I said, God bless that lady, but couldn't she like donate it to charity or something? But she's like, no, another window that looks at a brick wall or whatever, a staircase to nowhere. Dorothy was a nationally syndicated journalist and game show panelist. Is there a conspiracy? Because is there a, did she do something weird, Armenian bishop? Did she do something weird? Should I not like her? Or should I feel bad for her? Oh, Douglas Jones says the Bear River Massacre happened up there. The Mountain Meadows Massacre. We haven't covered the Mountain Meadows Massacre. We will, but we have covered the Bear River Massacre. It's a really good episode if you haven't watched it yet. And it's one that, like, if you're from up there, of course you've heard about it, but so many people haven't. And it was, I believe, like the worst massacre in American history, something like I would have known when I wrote the script. When I wrote the script, I knew that week, but now I forgot. Winchester Mystery House is in San Jose. Yep. Sarah Winchester went nuts over. Oh, that's true. She had a lot of supernatural encounters where, like, the people who had, been victims, let's say, of her husband's invention, visited her and stuff. But it's like, yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. But like, tell them to take a look at the house and say, like, you sure? Or maybe like leave interior design books around the house so they can take a look and understand why a staircase to nowhere maybe won't fit the motif. The Sharps rifle doing in the bison. Yeah, the Sharps family didn't have any problems. The Patterson family, the Colt family doesn't have any problems. But this lady's, like I said, I feel bad for her, but I'm saying you can't say that it's not crazy. Although it's a money drawing tourist attraction 150 years later, or 120 years later. Let's see. Thanks for the awesome podcast, Doug. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. That isn't. Make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Have you done a deep dive into Jim Bridger? Yeah, I want to do like kind of a bunch of his stories together. I think he is on the Mount Rushmore of mountain men for sure. He's one of those guys, a lot like Kit Carson. He's kind of a predecessor to Kit Carson, but he's involved in everything. He's everywhere. He's from the sandbar fight and the early iterations of Mountain Men to the Fetterman massacre. Like and he told him at the Fetterman massacre, like, listen, guys, don't go out there. And they're like, no, we know better than you, Jim Bridger. And he's like, you don't know better than me. And then they all got massacred. And he was kind of like, told you. Texan Born says, good night, y'all. Thanks, man. Good seeing you. Come on back. We'll be here Saturday night. It's looking like we'll have an episode out Saturday morning. Maybe do one Saturday night, and then Sunday we may even have another episode out Sunday and do a Sunday night stream. But we'll have at least one stream this weekend, maybe two as well, and 2 episodes. Sarah Winchester's Mystic had her family do all the construction. Yeah, she had the medium because it was during that time there was a whole craze about mediums. Mary Todd Lincoln was very into that. Another person that's like, you got to feel for these people. Winchester lost her husband. Mary Todd Lincoln lost her son. And it was just like, they're just in deep grief and trying to figure out something that they can do. And this craze is happening. This kind of secular craze is sweeping the nation at this point. And people are super into mediums. It'd be like going to a Pilates class or something. It's very trendy. But some people believed more than others. All right, scanning through here. Anybody else? Cryptid stories, weird locations we should visit. I'm going to go to the Plum Creek. That's not really a place. The Plum Creek, Battle of Plum Creek site, not really a place like for a field trip because it's just like a field behind an HEB, which I mean, kind of a good field trip, but it's just a plaque and stuff. But it would be, I think it's a must do. It's an hour or so from Austin. And it's like this place it's just changed the tide of really American history because it meant now we've changed the tide against the Comanche, and over the succeeding decades, expansion is going to keep rolling west when it had stalled for decades. So it's a big turning point, kind of fitting that it's behind an HEB. If you're a Texan, your entire quality of life is dictated by your proximity to the nearest HEB. I've done a deep dive on Bridger. That one's coming, right? If you know anything about Bridger, you almost can't do him justice. You'd need like a 10-hour episode. He has a neat quote, though, about he says all these things, and it sounds like they're impossible. And one of them is he says he's seen a trout go from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And it sounds like this guy's just talking, right? Just telling tall tales. But in fact, there is a Pacific River and an Atlantic River, I think in Montana or Idaho, and they split. They're at a fork. So you could see a trout go from one river from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And like, he's just saying this, he's smart. He's really smart. He says all these things in kind of a apocryphal, I guess, way, and a kind of mystic way. And he knows what he's doing. He's selling his own legend, but it's really entertaining to look through everything he says and be like, oh, he really did do that. He's just kind of being a smartass, which makes me like him more. Nancy Reagan was into psychic stuff. Was she really? I didn't know that. Let's see. Check earlier in the chat. I put okay. Only beer. Man, I got a lot of chats. Only beer, only beer, only beer. I'm looking here. Sorry, we got a bunch of them. Only beer. Sorry, I'm looking. Are you saying, okay, Only Beer says there's this one place with a lot of ancient drawings not far from my house. And one time I went there and got this overwhelming feeling that I'm not supposed to be there. Well, then you got to go, whether that's at a restaurant or a bar or in a cave, if it feels like you're not supposed to be there, then just take the hint. My Navajo friend told me that's because it was a sacred place and I wasn't supposed to be there. See, the Navajo agree with me. It's like that Seinfeld episode where George Costanza just leaves all the time. Like, leave on a high note. It's like, okay, I've seen it. I'm out. Let's see. The Ghost Lights of Marfa, Doc says. I haven't seen those. I went out to Marfa. I didn't get to see the ghost lights, but those are real. They're absolutely, plenty of video on them. I don't think anybody knows what they are. Are they supposed to be like gas pockets or something? And Marfa has turned into, I've been in Texas 12 years, and it has turned from a way West Texas town that everybody knew had the lights, but nobody in Austin had ever been to Marfa, to a vacation destination. Like all the tech bros here go out to Marfa, which is like, man, take it easy, like you gotta sometimes they go out there and it's like anywhere else. Like they're not terribly informed on the culture and they make fools of themselves, let's say. So check out Selkirk Island in Matagorda. The true story of the land is land under the Alamo. Really? Okay. The true story of the land under the Alamo, an interesting book named Killer of the Flower Moon. I have heard of Killer of the Flower Moon. They just made that into a movie a couple of years ago, right? With Leonardo DiCaprio. I've heard of that island. Isn't that where, is it Jean Lafitte was supposed to have landed there? Let's see. Doc Will says, you're in Marfa, Doc Will? I honestly, I love it out there. I used to think like, oh, West Texas is all just desert. It's cool. It's super cool. Sorry you're getting flooded with tech bros. Let me check this poll real quick. Let's see what you guys think. Would you be interested in a conspiracy channel? 89% of you says yes. Okay, cool. All right, noted. It'll be, let's say, like maybe the 1st of January, we can have that out, but we could do it. We can do that for sure. Let's see. I'm in Sherman, Denison. Okay, Denison, I vaguely know where that's at. Oh, you haven't been to Marfa in 20 years. You're in Sherman. Okay, gotcha. Let's see. Texas Vintage, is the Selkirk Island where Jean Lafitte landed? And Stephen Miller, what's up with this Nancy Reagan thing? She was into psychic stuff? For Douglas Jones says Fort Buenaventura, Peter Skeen, Ogden. Oh yeah, all these are on the list. Peter Skeen, Ogden. And we have Astor too. Ogden was a crazy guy, right? I'm trying to think of it's skipping my mind now, but the Santa Fe Trail, the big guy on the Santa Fe Trail. We need to do more on the Santa Fe Trail as well. Can we do a live stream about the historical accuracy of Hell on Wheels? I don't know if I know Hell on Wheels. Maybe we could do a movie one Saturday this weekend. Pet Detective says Nancy was well known for that. News to me. I didn't know that. As far as I know, in the 80s, everyone was like listening to Huey Lewis on the news and just having a good time. So like, I didn't know she did that. Texas Vintage says, no, you're thinking of Galveston for Jean Lafitte, but pirates did hide treasure in Galveston. Okay. Man, we got to do a Jean Lafitte one too. That would be a cool change of pace, I think. Because we think of Texas as just the interior. And it's like, well, no, it started pretty much from the coast and then went inward. Hell on Wheels is about the railroad and is a TV series. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Is a TV series on AMC. Yeah, we can do that. As long as I can access it somehow. Hell on Wheels. I'll write that down. We have a movie list. Hell on Wheels. Jean Lafitte landed in Galveston. His pirates went there to hide it. Okay. And so that's what I mean. Like all the towns on the coast are like pretty darn old and pretty darn storied. And then everything from like San Antonio on is like, it was founded in the 1830s or after because they just couldn't get any farther because the Comanche were just holding them up. There's no way you couldn't penetrate that barrier. Let's see. Any topics we should cover? Because we need to get a list together. So if you have any mysteries, conspiracies, cryptid stuff you want us to cover in the conspiracy channel, let's say we'll call it Hidden History, just so we have a working name to run on. Let me know in the chat. Anything you want. We'll, within reason, keep it PG-13, okay? Let's see. United in Galveston. Okay, we got to that one. Yeah, hit me with your favorite conspiracies. Any more Skinwalker stories? Any topics you'd like to see us cover on History at the OK Corral? Because really, that's why we're here, right? But it's fun to take little detours here and there. I'm gonna have to look into this Nancy Reagan thing. So she's doing mediums, and then Tipper Gore is like, we got to put warning labels on the album, and then it's just kind of that during the 80s. Well, I guess it was Reagan and Bush in the 80s, huh? But Tipper Gore was going off for a while, right? Tripled everyone's album sales. Have you been to the Texas Ranger Museum in Waco? No, that's obviously a mandatory. We got to go there, and we got to go soon. I like Waco. But they are, yeah, they are the keepers of all the relics that we need to see. Short stories by Kate says, I feel out of depth with the conspiracy talk. John Wilkes Booth, though, absolutely. And we could do that one here because we've talked about that. I think we talked about that last night or the night before last. Just a lot of stuff that is questionable in the official account there. Nancy Reagan was criticized for Nancy Reagan was criticized for taking advice from astrologers. I didn't know that. That's news to me because you see them as such. You think of the Reagans as staunch, Republicans, staunch conservatives, which doesn't mix terribly well in my mind with the medium. But I'm wrong. Apparently, I'm wrong. I didn't know that. Is the John Wayne Museum cool? Oh, where is the John Wayne Museum? They do They do exhibits all throughout the country. I follow them on Instagram, but I forget where they are. Is that Los Angeles? I need to see that. That's really cool. All of his movies, I haven't watched all the movies, but I'm a big fan, and you see so many cool outfits and stuff where you recognize it from the movie, which would be awesome. I need to go see it. Let's see. You could not travel from the East Coast to the West Coast without stopping in Ogden. Yeah. Korean, Utah was the meeting of the railroads. Yep. Where they drove the Golden Spike and then it kind of got messed up and they replaced it. Brigham Young didn't want visitors to Utah to see it. Yep. They were running a tight ship, those Mormons, for a while. I have a question. What are skinwalkers? I've heard that term, but I'm not familiar with them. Yeah. And when this is over, rewind it. You'll like the whole stream. The skinwalker is often conflated with other entities like a Wendigo, which is a person that's turned into a creature and there's no going back. And it's usually as a result of cannibalism or something like that. That's a lot of tribes have something like that. But the skinwalker is a specific Navajo thing where they're a society of shamans that live separate basically from the tribe, and they work with black magic essentially, right? And they can turn themselves into different animals. They can disappear, reappear, and they're always there's something bad's going to happen. We've said before, I got it written down here. They can curse you. They can kill you. They can possess you. They can possess other creatures and take on the attributes of those creatures. And if you see one, it's never a good thing. There's stories that usually say, if you see one, you're going to last like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then you're done. So it's a harbinger of doom, but it is a person using magic. It is not this separate creature that is permanently this creature and runs around in the wild. Let's see. Korean, Utah was the original Hell on Wheels. As the home of it's the end point of the railroad, right? Now, I mentioned how the major components in the turning point of the West, like the railroad is certainly another linchpin to that. It changed. There's the world pre-railroad, pre-telegraph wires, and the world after that. Like we might think of automobiles, or maybe you saw the transformation to color television or the iPhone. Like they're just two, or the internet, just two separate worlds. There's a before and there's an after. Let's see. Is there skinwalker types in other parts of the world? Yeah, it's probably more akin to, usually more akin to the Wendigo, but yeah, there are and have been throughout time. The Celts, I think the Gauls. There's always an animist culture that wants to take on the attributes of the animals that they worship, and some notion of black magic that can be used against your enemies. Bruja, only much worse. Yeah, like there's a Bruja. On the Halloween episode, we talked about La Llorona, who is a folklore witch in Mexican tradition, and especially down in Texas border towns. But again, a lot of these stories are used to warn or dissuade people from undesirable behaviors, right? So La Llorona is to keep kids specifically away from the river. Like, don't go near the river. You can, the La Llorona is going to grab you. The Wendigo is to dissuade people from cannibalism. But the Skinwalkers are they're their own self-directed group. Like they have a purpose behind everything they do. And it just exists. Like it's just as real to the Navajo as anything. But they're not there. It's not like a apocryphal story or a folk tale to warn you this is a real thing. Like whether they actually turn into these animals or take on these powers, they certainly believe they do. And these ceremonies really happened or happen, probably still happen. Let's see. Chat is lighting up. I'm sure cultures all over the world have some form of it. They do. Yeah, a shapeshifter. That's kind of akin to what a skinwalker is, but there's more purpose behind it. Like it's not shifting shape just to shift shape. There's a specific intention behind everything they do. And it's to employ or utilize some form of black magic. Hard to think something supernatural would stay in one place. Yeah, and it's not even so much that they can get around. Like, this is a little esoteric for my taste, but it's not so much that they can get around in this dimension. Like they can move between dimensions, which is obviously that's 4D chess, right? So it's an even more complex notion than we like to think of. It's not like a werewolf who's running around the forests. It's like a werewolf that can, disappear, reappear, and go who knows where, but can go into realms that we're not capable of. In Nordic traditions, but this is a great point, Grizzly. It's very much akin to the berserkers. Yeah. In Nordic traditions, there are berserkers, Hadnal. They take on the spirit of the bear or the wolf for battle. Yes, and there's a heavy psychedelic component there too. Kind of taking something akin to a Nordic psilocybin, right? And I wasn't able to find exact references to psychedelics in relation to the skinwalkers, but in my mind, there's likely something of that nature. The tribes throughout the Southwest all use some form of it. Some form of them, I guess, psychedelics. My wife is from Mexico, and La Llorona is no joke to her. She swears up and down it's real. I mean, yeah, like it's similar to the Navajo skinwalker. It's like, you may not believe it. You may or may not believe it, but they believe it. And they, whether you think that's real or not, it shapes the way they look at the world, which is valuable information for you. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Shapeshifters are pretty much global. I retired from the U.S. Navy and have been to over 30 countries in Asia and the Pacific. Skinwalkers are an American phenomenon. Yes, and specifically a Navajo phenomenon. But yes, shapeshifters, they're in the Philippines, they're in China, they're in, we talked about the jinn in the Middle East. I don't know, but I'm thinking Australia has a wild one. Trying to think of something else. And obviously in Nordic traditions with the berserkers. And those are just a couple. Africa has them, but it's not coming to mind what they are. But everyone has one. The only thing that really that shakes me about the skinwalkers is like, it's not, there's so much intention to it. It's like they're doing this for a very specific reason. They're out to get you. And it's as simple as like, if you're out driving in that area and you see someone on the side of the road hitchhiking and in need of help, it could be a skinwalker. That's the tricky thing. Armenian Bishop says Berserker was a Viking warrior that cleared the path to enemies. Yeah, they would charge first. They would get all hyped up wearing their skins and taking their psilocybin and doing their dances. And I think they didn't have anything but the skins on. and they would charge first because they're in a froth. Like they've got themselves so worked up that they're not, they don't have any fear, or what fear they have isn't bothering them enough to keep them from charging. Only Beer says, go watch Nuke Stop 5 for some creepy Jin videos. His channel is all about ghost videos. Yeah, I've seen Jin videos. They're creepy. They're creepy. It's you'll see guys out in the middle of the desert and some kind of ethereal ghost, like I'm trying to think of, like, yeah, it's kind of like a light ghost thing they'll see out in the middle of the desert. It's creepy. It's really creepy. And in our mind, like that's what a genie is to them. And in our mind, it's like, yeah, the Robin Williams character. Let's see. Douglas Jones says, yes, to be a skinwalker, you have to unalive a loved one. That's some sinister stuff. Yeah. And you, in some cases, would have to eat them or something along those lines, something else along those lines, something that would be undesirable. If you get what I'm saying, that's about as far as I can go with that. Let's see. Are the skinwalkers only to harm or protect? So the Navajo view witches, a lot of cultures who have some kind of witch element to them view them as good and bad, black and white magic. So the skinwalkers specifically seem to deal only in black magic, but it can also exist as medicine men within the tribe. So they can work in white magic, but their ultimate ends are in black magic, where the medicine men of the tribe are exclusively white magic. But there can be some deals struck. I read of a couple deals where it was like basically like a backroom deal where a medicine man would team up with a skinwalker, and the skinwalker would make a person sick and the medicine man would heal them. But you get a little cut for that every time, right? Doing this, you get a little cut every time. You get some money, you get paid for it, or you get goods, right? It's a trade-off. So they would just keep making a person sick and healing them and then splitting the money, and it became a little racket. Which, I mean, anywhere you go, right? That's worldwide too. I live just 6 miles, I think, north of the Rio Grande, and La Llorona is nothing to joke with. Yeah, that's kind of where I was referring to. Anywhere South Texas, northern Mexico, all around that Rio Grande area, like you don't play about that. Very, very similar to a skinwalker. It is absolutely real. It'd be as real as me talking to you about a white-tailed deer here, right? Like, there's white-tailed. It's not even a question. Everybody's seen white-tailed deer here. If you acted like the white-tailed deer, maybe not real, you'd be crazy. Someone would look at you like you're nuts. Berserker comes from the loose translated term bear skin, right? I've read that. Berserker take on the form and believe they are the bear. Yeah, that's a very similar thing with the skinwalkers, where it's like, I put on the wolf skin, I have the attributes of a wolf. No culture is free of the good old-fashioned con man. That is true. Wasn't there one guy that like sold the Eiffel Tower? He might have sold it a couple times. He didn't even own it, obviously, but he sold it in the 1800s. I still kind of find it funny that they would hire out their dark arts. I mean, you know what I mean? You got to delegate. That's the road to success. They were some kind of black magic mercenary. Yeah, but that's not wholly uncommon. You see that with voodoo and hoodoo. Like think of it like sticking the pins and needles in the little doll, like in Indiana Jones. Let's see if I can even. There we go. It always bugs me when that thing's off to the side. There we go. That's how I had to kind of contextualize it. Like you think about, hiring them out, and it's like, yeah, it's basically like the voodoo doll. I'm gonna stick a pin in his back, and he gets a back spasm. Pet Detective says the guy that sold the Eiffel Tower was business minded. You could say that. You could say that. So not a lot of you guys have had actual experiences with the Skinwalker, which I'm glad to hear about. I think we've had a couple Bigfoot experiences in the chat before. Anybody seen La Llorona? Or has anybody seen their local version of that? Let me know what it is. Business minded. Yeah, I've got to that one. All right, I'm gonna scroll back because I know I missed a bunch of them. Let's see. I'm looking for cryptid stories. Specifically Skinwalker, but we'll take Bigfoot, we'll take Wendigo, we'll take skunk ape, we'll take pugwudgie, whatever you got. Pugwudgies go to the front of the line. What is La Llorona? Yeah, I guess we didn't really cover that. It's a You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a white-clad woman who was drowned in the river, essentially, right? She was a witch. That's what La Llorona means. I know my pronunciation on that is like iffy, but I got 3 years of high school Spanish, guys. I'm doing my best. Yeah, let me know in the chat if I'm but she's a witch who drowned in the river, and she will if you get too close to the river, she'll grab you and pull you in. Only Beer says, "My wife has seen her. She tells me stories about when she grew up in Mexico and would see a woman in white crying a lot when she was a little girl." Yeah, it's like I said, it'd be like saying you don't believe in La Llorona to them or to somebody in that area would be like being in Central Texas and saying like, yeah, well, I don't know if I believe in white-tailed deer, and you're just like, or I don't. Maybe a good one is armadillos, because if you told somebody what an armadillo was, and you're like, yeah, it's this armored plated like thing, and it runs around and digs holes, and it's got a big tail, but it's a mammal, people will be like, I don't know if I believe in that. But if you've seen one, you're just like, it's as clear and present as the noonday sun, right? Doc Will says, you're saying it fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Anybody else? Have you seen your local cryptid? It doesn't have to be La Llorona. It doesn't have to be a skinwalker. A friend and I did an occult experiment. Armenian bishop, I'm so disappointed. We both saw a spirit with a turban in a mirror. Oh boy. That can't be good, bro. That just can't be good. And kind of, that brings an interesting point, though. I'm not saying you did this, but during that spirit medium craze, what was hot then too was the Ouija board, and it was a total invention. But if you look at it, we JA, like it's the French yes and yeah, like another yes. I forget what it's a yeah, right? So it's yes, yes. You're opening yourself up. So it's something that's I don't know. That's one that's always really creeped me out. You are opening yourself up to some undesirable stuff there. Though, as creepy as it is, it's still manufactured by Hasbro. I had a lot of ghost experiences, says Only Beer, but not skinwalkers. You guys just have a very ghost heavy family, Only Beer. Your wife has seen La Llorona. You've seen lots of ghosts. Let's see. Armenian Bishop, what do you mean by a cult experiment? What did you do? You like light some candles and you like lay like this and light some candles around you? Oh, Stephen Miller says La Llorona unalived her children in the river to get back at her husband for leaving her, which is like that's like a telenovela, right? But yeah, that's what I'd heard. And so is forced, she's forced to haunt the river. Too much coffee, guys, but doesn't mean I'm going to stop. Check out Coldwater Canyon in Ogden, Utah. I grew up less than a mile from there. Many documented encounters. There are many canyons there. I've hiked them all. Coldwater is different. What do you mean? I mean, I know what you mean by encounters, but what type? Like, what are we seeing? Werewolves or like ghosts or buffalo ghosts? I don't know. Weird feelings at on Kilroy. I'm not sure what that means. Weird feelings at the On a Slope Village. Is it On a Slope Village a place? I mean, weird feelings are good enough for me. I'll take my curtain call then. Thank you. Douglas. Oh, it's Bigfoot country and Coldwater Canyon. Oh, I know I've heard that on an Art Bell show. Let's see. And that's another thing. Like people in those areas, you can say, "Oh, I don't know if I believe," and they're just like, they'll just look at you like you're insane because they have all had experiences with it. A friend and I went hunting. Grizzly says, a friend and I went hunting and he had a direct shoulder shot on a good sized buck. Never found its body. I joked the pugwudgies must have taken the body. So are you in pugwudgie territory? Where is that exactly? That name just always stuck with me. Okay. And Kilroy says, on a slope village is an old Indian village on a slope. That's why they call it that. Fair enough. Fair enough. Egg on my face. Uh, oh, so yeah, you're in the Northeast, Delaware. Okay. I knew it was the Northeast somewhere. What is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be creepy to you guys, or is it like just kind of a impish kind of thing? Stephen Miller says, I've never seen anything unnatural in all my outdoor activities. So you like that, or is that kind of disappointing? Let's see. Demons are okay. Well, elite super grunt, man. He says demons are always around me. Well, you got to stay prayed up. That's all you can do. It was 50 years ago in college dorm. Armenian bishop talking about his unadvisable, let's say, experiment here. I'm trying to remember. We had mirrors and some kind of dim lighting. It was 50 years ago. So it's in the 70s. We won't count it then. Whatever happened in the 70s stays in the 70s. Let's see. Pugs are north. The Pugwudgies. Yeah. I feel maybe it's just the name. Like maybe it's just an unassuming name and it's terrifying, but I don't feel as scared of a Pugwudgie until I find out what it is. But here and now, right now, not as scared of the Pugwudgie as I am a Skinwalker. Pugwudgies are little people of Delaware Lenape origin. They are mischievous tricksters. That's what I thought. Okay. But still, you know what I mean? I don't need that. Let's see. I'll take a Pugwudgies, take a swift kick in the ass for that. I don't have time for that. We were trying to contact spiritual guides, says Armenian bishop. All right, man. Like I said, it happened in 75. It's all good. It's wiped clean. Stephen Miller says, I'm kind of disappointed I haven't had any experiences. But you haven't had any yet, okay? But just don't go walking around the woods going like, Skinwalker, Skinwalker. Don't do that. Let's just be cool. Let's see. The tribes, Douglas says, the tribes avoided living in Coldwater Canyon. You won't find any pictographs there. Yeah, I mean, can you blame them? Doesn't sound like a good place to be. Sounds like that place is taken. Let's see. So we got a Pugwudgie, we got a Bigfoot, we got a La Llorona encounter. You guys are bringing it. Kilroy says there's a Devil's Lake serpent. Nothing fancy, just supposed to be a giant sea snake. I mean, still though, that's not nothing. Let's see. Elite Super Grunt. Hang in there, bro. Everybody in this chat's pulling for you. Let's see. I mean, it could be worse. You're not afflicted by a Skinwalker, I like hearing the stories. Short Stories by Kate says, I like hearing the stories. I just don't want to experience them. Don't want to experience them. Short Stories by Kate. You have any cryptid encounters? I feel like Short Stories by Kate has something. They're holding out on us. All right, I'm looking back through the chat here. La Llorona? I'm looking for La Llorona. We have a fair amount of Texas listenership. Let's see, I could go on for at least half an hour about my ghost story, says Only Beer. I've seen some crazy stuff. Hit us with your craziest one right now. Let's see what Only Beer has for us. This is a good way to end it, right? We got, we're kind of wrapping it up towards the end here. I want to hear what you guys had. I brought you a whole Skinwalker thing. I set it up. It's an alley-oop. And you guys finish it with a dunk. Hit me with some good stories here. Short Story says, no, sir. No stories. My family is enough. Stories of my family is enough. We'll take that. I'd say that for myself. I haven't seen any Bigfoot, but I've seen some crazy stuff. Space Cowboy says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. 1 Peter 5:8. Amen. Bear Lake, Idaho, Utah has the Bear Lake monster myths going back to the local indigenous, and I'm not sure what that last one is, but yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Bear Lake, because we've done the Bear Lake massacre, which was in Idaho, right? Just north of Ogden Valley. Yeah, who would that be? Shawnee? No. Tell me what tribe. I'm forgetting who all is up there. Let's see. Elite Super Grunt says I have an attempted alien abduction. What was that? They tried taking me 3 times in one night. I mean, come on, man. If they didn't get you, say, like, if you didn't get me twice, knock it off. Did they buy you a beer or anything? Or is this just like a see you later kind of thing? Let's see. Armenian Bishop says La Llorona is a crying lady. Yep. And we got a couple in the chat talking about their experiences with her. Yeah, Elite Super Grunt. What'd you do? Did you like Jason Bourne them, or how did you get away? Douglas Jones says it was the Shoshone on Bear Lake. I should have known that. The Shoshone, sorry. Like I said before, a lot of stuff floats in and out. I knew it wasn't the Shawnee. They're obviously farther east. The Shoshone, yes, and that's who was the victim of the Bear River massacre, which I didn't understand how big that was. That was bad. Let's see. Yeah, Elite Super Grunt. You're holding out on us. How'd you get away? 3 in a night? Was it the same ship? Didn't expect to see 3 in one night. That's wild, man. Let's see. Only Beer says, I mean, that's kind of hard to. Oh, what's your craziest one? Only Beer says, the scariest one is when I was lying in bed, something grabbed my foot and then slammed the bathroom door. Well, that's not good. I'm not trying to freak you out, but Beryl, that's not good. That's not good. How long ago was that? Did we get that taken care of? I'm not telling you that's the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly not good. Let's see. Douglas Jones, did the Shoshone have a lot of Bigfoot stories? I didn't really look into that. They have the one cryptid story, right? Only Beer says, boy, you got a lot of them, Only Beer. There was one time in the middle of the night when I went to get water and everyone was asleep and something called my name from right behind me and there was no one there. Okay, dude, but that's legit Skinwalker stuff. Not to freak you out, but like that's what they do. Good news is if they're right behind you, that means they're far away. So that's working in your favor. That's a good. We can chalk that up as a W right there. But man, like we gotta figure something out here. Can we put like those little like wind draft things under your door so this, the bat? I don't know. Let's keep them from getting in. Let's see. Boy, there's a lot of them. I recently met a guy. Space Cowboy says I met a guy who did some fly fishing at Pyramid Lake in Nevada. I told him about the legend of water babies. I've heard about the water babies. Isn't that pretty much what it sounds like? There's like a bunch of kids in the lake. That's about the creepiest thing that you could call an entity. That's creepier than Skinwalker. Water babies? Some people call it sleep. Elite Super Grunt says some people call it sleep paralysis, but 3 tall, dark beings tried grabbing me. No good. No good, bro. But how did what did we do? Did we triangle choke them? Did we hit them with the 1-2? You're a vet, right? You have some kind of firearm training. We can't just let this happen, right? I feel like you must have done something. I know you're not going to just sit there and let these guys mess with you. Let's see. A few years ago, Only Beer. This is a lot of ghost stories, bro. I've seen a few years ago this happened. I've since come back to Christ and the experiences have stopped. My wife was mad because I was used to communicate with my dead friends. I used to drink a lot back then. I'm sober now. Well, good for you, man. That's the best thing we've heard all night. That's great. I mean, your wife is probably like, listen, I got enough trouble with La Llorona. Just chill out, bro. Elite Super Grunt says, how does someone have sleep paralysis 3 times in a row? I tried yelling. Nobody heard me. Let's see. That's not good. Does this keep happening? Because let's do something about that if it keeps happening. But all 3 of them are grabbing you here? And then you just kick free, or this is disconcerting. Good news is I don't think they're skinwalkers. So we're building a list of positives here. And I mean, in the Old West context, it's like, well, how often did this stuff happen out on the frontier? It's interesting to think about, right? Let's see. Wait, Douglas Jones says Google cold water trout farm plus Bigfoot. The Bigfoot like got in there? Did he eat a bunch of trout? What happened there? Elite Super Grunt says I just mentally fought them off. Right on, bro. This is where it's a steel trap. This is where it all begins and ends. It's all between the ears. Let's see. I feel like they might be a good number of us living on the Missouri River doing a video on the Missouri River Spirit. I didn't know about the Missouri River Spirit. Okay, we'll write that down. Missouri River Spirit. Missouri River Spirit. Okay. You've thoroughly freaked me out, Kilroy, but we're going to look into it. I knew a guy, Pet Detective says, I knew a guy whose family owned a winery, and he said he only ate garbanzo beans, and every evening he sat out on a balcony, and space aliens would come and get him to do experiments. Whoa. Okay. I gotta be honest with you, I didn't see that one coming. The craziest part of that is honestly the garbanzo beans. I was like, I've heard of people saying that aliens come and get them, but I've never heard somebody say they only eat garbanzo beans. And he had his own winery. Okay. So he's a successful guy too. So like maybe the garbanzo beans work. Just never heard somebody say that. Douglas Jones says, I know the people at the Coldwater Trout Farm, and they're not prone to exaggeration. Okay, so this is recent. Bigfoot got into the Coldwater Farm and did some damage. Okay, we're gonna look that up. I will look that up when we're done here because I got too much. Like, I'm getting hit with a lot of paranormal stuff all at once, but I got that written down. Coldwater Trout Farm. And that's the thing. Like, you'll see a lot of these accounts where it's like the person talking about it has no reputation of being exaggerative or prone to hyperbole. And they're just kind of talking to you like they're as confused as you. Like they're trying to get you to make some sense out of it. They're like, well, I saw this big guy and he was, running through the woods, but they're freaked out themselves. They're not trying to get one over on you. Let's see. I think the spirit's name is Minnie Washtu or something like that. Well, we're not going to throw that name around too much here just to be safe, but okay, we'll look into it. I mean, yeah, we'll do a stream on that if nothing else. Because there's just so like I've said 4 times in this stream, it's like, I think understanding these local lore legends actually really lends to your understanding of the history of anything. Like if you're studying the Alps or whatever, like it helps to understand what these people believe because it shapes their worldview. It helps to understand it in American history as well. Let's see. Only Beer says, I want to add. Oh, Elite Super Grunt says, the last minute before they pulled me off my bed, I felt I was hitting the floor. I was on the floor looking up at them and then in a snap back on my bed. Okay, well, we need to get some kind of preventative measure in place for you so this doesn't happen anymore. There has to be, we got to talk to, I don't know, we have a priest we can call one of them, trying to think here. Maybe pest control as well. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm saying, like, I don't know. We got to do something about this, Elite Super Grunt. We can't just let this stand. 3 jerks showing up randomly. This is America. We don't let that happen here. Wanted to add one last one. Okay, Only Beer. One time I was telling a story about how my family was involved in the Wild West, and then a cut moved across the table. Willie Nickel is the kid who... Oh, were you talking about Willie Nickel? And when you were talking about Willie Nickel, who is the kid that Tom Horn killed, who he thought Willie Nickel, who was this 14-year-old boy, was actually his dad, and Tom Horn was a contract assassin. And so he takes out Willie Nickel, but in fact, it was he takes out Willie Nickel thinking that he's his dad. It's not his dad. He gets arrested and they hang Tom Horn. Short story, or long story made short. Well, you were talking about that and the cut moved. Again, like I hate to belabor the obvious, but it's not good. It's not good. I'm glad you turned things around, man. Cups aren't cheap these days either. You don't want them breaking. Let's see. Elite Super Grunt says, I need another beer. I mean, like, don't we all? I was telling her about, okay, let's see. I see halos in windows and mirrors, says Armenian Bishop. Well, halos, I mean, it could be worse than that. It could be worse than that. Let's see. I grew up with the MHA. Kilroy, what is that? What's the MHA? Elite Super Grunt says, it's never happened again. I'm doing a Bible study now. Awesome, man. Great. That should nip it in the bud, man. Don't take that crap lying down. Anybody ever seen Roy D. Mercer? He says, like, I'll come down there and whoop your ass. It's like, that's how I feel about aliens. It's like, if I hear about you guys here, you have to deal with me. I don't like it. So, Elite Super Grunt, you're saying it's not Project Bluebeam. Aliens are in fact real, or do you think you were a victim of Project Bluebeam? And that's why we need the other channel, guys. So like that it's hard to do like 3 hours on Project Bluebeam as much as we'd all like to. It just doesn't fit under the Old West umbrella. So yeah, we'll do, what do we got? 82% of people saying do another one. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. Because there's a lot of topics that are of great import. Let's see. Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. Okay. Oh, MHA is Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. Got it. Let's see. All right. What do we got? We're at 2 hours. So I'll keep. Anybody else have something they want to throw in before we call it a night here? I'm scanning back through the chat. We got a lot of. Man, I want to say thank you again to Nick Sweeney for that massive super chat. Thank you so much. The MVP tonight. Let's see. Only Beer is saying that kid who Tom Horn assassinated is his distant cousin. Okay. Well, tell him leave the cups alone. You know what I mean? Let's see. We only got so many cups. Scrolling back here. If you put a comment in and I didn't see it, give me some grace here. I'm looking for them. Okay. This is your last chance. Get the cryptid stories in. If you have any topics you want me to cover coming up soon, either on the regular shows or on the live stream, let me know. Get those in now and I'll write them down. Like I said, we have Young Washington coming up. That'll be Saturday morning. And then we have the most brutal battles of the U.S. Marines. This isn't the actual title, but the U.S. Marines battles in the Old West, which is why we talked about on the last live stream, kind of setting the stage for that. They were involved in a lot of battles. They shaped a lot of Old West history, and they're often overlooked. So we're going to remedy that. That should be out Sunday. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody got some chats they want to get in before we sign off? Thanks for a great show, great evening. Looking forward to the next episode. Thank you, Short Stories by Kate, and thank you for your support and the super chats as well. And thank you to everybody for showing up. It's like you guys keep showing up and hanging out and talking history, which we love, and talking all this other fun stuff. So can't thank you enough. We'll be back. Like I said, lots of stuff coming this weekend. I'll post something on our next live stream tomorrow, whether that's Saturday or Sunday. And we'll try and do a movie night this weekend as well. Got more History Fighting Championships coming up, more paranormal stuff. So all that good stuff is on its way. And yeah, man, thank you guys so much for showing up to support us. All right, I'm going to look through last time here. Do you have an email where we can send stories? Yeah, it's history@theokcorral, all one word. My tongue's getting tired now, @gmail.com. So history@theokcorral@gmail.com. I was lit up by daytime like light and could not move scanned. Langley says you had your own experience, huh? They came and got you. Oh, they came and got you at night. An alien, sounds like. And it was lit up like daytime, but it was in fact nighttime, which is never good. That's never a good sign. Have a good evening. Thanks, your Armenian Bishop. Thanks for coming out, man. We'll see you on the next one. I had no idea Marines were involved in the fighting in the Old West. Yeah, it'll be out Sunday. Excuse me, allergies. So be looking for that. That'll be a really cool episode. It's a good time. Stephen Miller, good night, all. Doc Will, good night. Good night to you all. Again, God bless and thank you so much for all your support. And we'll be seeing you tomorrow. All right. See ya.